tonight, authorities arrested a man in Jackson accused of stealing from a business. This all unfolded last night on Northwest Avenue near Madison Street. Police responded to reports of retail fraud there, and that's when officers found and arrested the 28-year-old. The man was wanted on an outstanding felony warrant out of Jackson. The stolen items have been recovered.
New tonight, Michigan authorities have released the booking photo for former University of Michigan football coach Sherrone Moore. He was arrested last week and charged with a felony count of home invasion and 2 misdemeanors. He was also fired for having an alleged relationship with a female staffer. And we're learning more about the timeline of events leading up to Moore's arrest. Court documents show that the female staffer allegedly ended their relationship back on December 8th. Despite this, investigators say Moore constantly called and texted the woman after she broke it off. A few days later, after he was fired, court documents show Moore went to the woman's apartment unannounced and pushed his way in. Then he grabbed knives and a pair of scissors, threatening suicide, but only stopped when told that the police would be called. At that point, Moore allegedly left the woman's apartment but continued sending her texts saying he hated her and again that his blood would be on her hands. The University of Michigan says it's continuing the investigation into Sherrone Moore to uncover any additional evidence or possible other victims. Last week, Moore was released from jail on a $25,000 bond. He's expected back in court January 22nd.
New tonight.